Hey everyone! Wait, I need you to stop everything right now because what I'm picking up on is so intense. I almost didn't make this video. There are things happening in your life right now that you're not fully aware of. Conversations about you, thoughts about you, movements happening in spaces you can't see. And if you only knew what's going on behind your back, everything would make sense. Welcome back. It's Anna. And you got to know this ASAP because what's happening in the unseen parts of your life is actually more significant than what's visible. And you're walking around completely unaware of how much you're actually impacting people. Let me tell you what's making my heart race as I tune into this. You may notice lately that people have been acting differently around you, slightly more attentive, slightly more interested, slightly more something. And you've been dismissing it as your imagination or coincidence or just people being polite, but it's not random. Some people experience this as catching strange looks, noticing conversations that seem to stop when you enter a room, sensing energy shifts that you can't quite explain, and you've been telling yourself you're being paranoid or reading too much into things. But what if you're reading exactly the right amount into things? It can feel like you're going through your normal day and there's this background awareness that something is happening, something you're not privy to, something just beyond your perception. Let's pause for a moment because this feels critically important. This reflection invites you to consider is less than #0. 5 is greater than what if the attention you're getting is more significant than you realize? What if people's interest in you is deeper than what they're showing on the surface? You may notice there's someone in your life right now who's talking about you to others, not in a negative way, but in a way that reveals how much you're actually on their mind. They're mentioning you in conversations, bringing you up, asking about you, defending you when others speak carelessly, and you have no idea. It's possible this person is currently processing their feelings for you in private. They're talking to friends about you. They're trying to figure out what this pull toward you means. They're testing whether what they feel is real or just passing interest. In some situations, the most significant connections develop in the spaces we can't see, in the private thoughts someone has about us, in the conversations where our name comes up and someone speaks about us with a tone that reveals more than words. Hold on. Let me slow down because I'm getting chills talking about this. There's a quality in your current reality that suggests you're being discussed, not gossiped about, but genuinely considered. People are talking about your qualities, your strengths, your impact, what you bring to spaces, how you make them feel. It's possible there's a specific conversation happening right now or that happened recently where someone was asked about you and their response surprised even them, where they found themselves speaking about you with more warmth than they intended, more admiration than they realized they felt. Some people experience this through secondhand information. A mutual friend mentions that someone was asking about you, or you hear through the grapevine that your name came up in a context you weren't expecting. You may notice you're currently being recommended for opportunities, for connections, for situations. People are thinking of you when things come up. Your name is surfacing in conversations about who would be good for this project or that role or this introduction. And you're going about your day completely unaware that you're being advocated for. This reflection invites you to consider, what if your impact is bigger than you're allowing yourself to believe? It can feel like you're working in isolation, doing your thing, not thinking much about how others perceive you. And meanwhile, there are people actively talking about how impressive you are, how much you've grown, how differently you're showing up. That recognition, it's happening. You just can't see it yet. Let me talk about what might be happening in spaces you're not present in. It's possible there's someone who defends you when you're not there, who corrects misperceptions, who makes sure your contributions don't get overlooked, who speaks up for you in moments where you can't speak for yourself. Some people experience this as discovering later that someone went to bat for them, that someone vouched for them, that someone made sure their name was included in an important conversation. You may notice you're currently receiving opportunities that seem to come out of nowhere, invitations you weren't expecting, connections that feel random but aren't. Someone thought of you, someone mentioned your name, someone opened a door because they believed you deserved access. That's not luck. That's people working on your behalf behind the scenes. This reflection invites you to consider who in your life might be advocating for you in ways you're not aware of. There's something I keep sensing about perception versus reality in your current experience. It's possible you think you're invisible or overlooked or not making much of an impression, but the reality is people notice you more than you realize. They're watching how you handle things. They're impressed by your growth. They're paying attention to your consistency. Some people experience this as a disconnect between their internal experience and external reality. Internally, they feel like they're struggling or barely keeping it together. But externally, people are seeing strength, resilience, grace under pressure. You may notice people are currently treating you with more respect than they used to. Not because you demanded it, but because you've earned it through how you've been showing up. And they're talking about that shift when you're not around. It can feel like you're just doing what you need to do to get through your days, but others are seeing it as impressive, as inspiring, as worthy of mention. This reflection invites you to consider what if how you see yourself and how others see you are drastically different. Let me talk about what might be happening with someone specific right now. It's possible there's a person in your life who thinks about you far more than you think they do, who's working up courage to tell you something, who's trying to figure out how to be more present in your life without being obvious about it. Some people experience this through small signs, this person suddenly being more available, more helpful, more interested in your life, and you might be reading it as just friendly when it's actually something more. You may notice this person asks others about you, tries to find out information without being too direct, pays attention to details about your life that you mentioned in passing. That attention, that's significant. That's someone who's genuinely interested, but not yet ready to fully reveal it. This reflection invites you to consider who in your current life is showing interest in ways that seem casual but might be intentional. There's something about your current reputation that you're not fully aware of. It's possible people are describing you in ways that would surprise you, with words like strong or impressive or inspiring, and you're walking around thinking you're just regular, just getting by, just surviving. But survival looks different to people who aren't inside it. What feels like barely hanging on to you looks like incredible resilience to others. Some people experience this when they finally hear what others say about them. They're shocked. They had no idea they were perceived that way. They thought they were just doing what anyone would do. But you're not doing what anyone would do. You're doing what you're capable of. And your capacity is bigger than you're giving yourself credit for. You may notice you're currently being held in higher regard than you holding yourself. People respect you more than you respect yourself. People believe in you more than you believe in yourself. And that gap, that's information. That's telling you something about the stories you're carrying, about your own inadequacy. This reflection invites you to consider what would change if you saw yourself the way others are currently seeing you. Let me slow down for a second because I want to talk about something that might bring up emotion. There's a quality in your current experience that suggests you've been underestimating your own impact. You think you're forgettable, but people remember you. You think you're not making a difference, but you're changing how people think and feel and act. It's possible someone recently told a story about you, about something you said or did that stuck with them, about a moment with you that shifted something for them. And you have no idea that moment mattered. You probably don't even remember it, but they do. They remember, and they're talking about it. Some people experience this as discovering they influenced someone in ways they never intended. A comment they made casually became a turning point for someone else. A kindness they showed without thinking became exactly what someone needed. You may notice people are currently modeling behaviors they learned from you, using phrases you use, approaching situations the way you approach them. You've become a reference point and you don't even know it. That influence, that's real. That's happening right now in spaces you can't see. This reflection invites you to consider, what if your presence matters more than you've been allowing yourself to believe? There's something I keep coming back to about being seen. It's possible you've felt invisible for a long time. Like you could disappear and no one would notice. Like you're not making waves or leaving marks or mattering much to anyone. But the reality is you're very visible, you're very noticed, and there are conversations happening about you that would prove to you that you matter far more than you think. Some people experience this as a profound shift in self-perception. When they finally understand how they're actually seen, it changes everything. Their confidence shifts, their presence changes. They start showing up differently because they realize they've been showing up more powerfully than they knew. You may notice you're currently receiving positive feedback that feels disconnected from your internal experience. People are complimenting you and you're dismissing it as them just being nice. But what if they're being honest? What if when someone says you're impressive, they mean it? What if when someone says you inspire them, that's their truth? What if the positive things people say about you when you're not there are even more generous than what they say to your face? This reflection invites you to consider, what would it feel like to trust that people mean the positive things they say about you? Let me talk about what this means for how you move forward. It's possible knowing this, knowing that you're being discussed and thought about and advocated for, could change how you show up. You might stand a little taller, speak a little more confidently, take up space a little more fully. Some people experience this knowledge as permission, permission to believe in themselves, permission to claim their impact, permission to stop diminishing their presence. You may notice that just reading this is shifting something in you. You're starting to consider that maybe you're not as insignificant as you've been telling yourself. Maybe your presence does matter. Maybe people do notice. And that shift, that's everything. This reflection invites you to consider, how would you show up differently if you fully believed people were paying attention? You remain in complete control of your choices here. You can dismiss this. You can tell yourself it doesn't apply to you. You can continue believing you're invisible or unremarkable or not making much difference, or you can let this in. You can trust that, yes, there are things happening behind your back, and they're good things, things that would make you feel seen and valued and appreciated. The power is yours. It always has been. You may notice you're currently at a choice point. You can keep playing small. Or you can step into the bigness that others are already seeing in you. Take what resonates from this, leave what doesn't. Trust your inner knowing about what's true for you. Before we close, I want to ask you something. If you could hear one conversation that people are having about you when you're not there is less than #0, 5# is greater than, what would you want it to be? Drop it in the comments if you feel called to share. And here's another question. Who in your life do you suspect is talking about you in positive ways behind your back? What would change if you trusted that people's regard for you is higher than you think? Wow, if you only knew what's going on behind your back. People are talking about you, thinking about you, recognizing you, advocating for you, being influenced by you. You got to know this ASAP. You know it now. You're being seen. You're making impact. You matter more than you think. Not in some future timeline. Right now, today, in conversations happening in spaces you can't access. Trust yourself with this. Trust that you're worth talking about. Trust that your presence is significant. Trust that you're leaving marks on people, whether you intend to or not. You don't need to perform or prove yourself. You just need to keep being who you are, because who you are is already impressive, already worthy, already enough. I'll see you in the next one. And remember, the version of you that exists in other people's minds is probably kinder and more impressive than the version you carry in your own. Maybe it's time to start believing what they see.